Hello and welcome to Oulton Park, where we are about to get the second round of the Avon Tyres Formula Ford 1600 National Championship underway. I'm joined now by a man who knows a thing or two about this form of racing, Cliff Dempsey. Cliff, you've been involved in Formula Fords, you were saying since the early 80s, and really not much has changed since then, has it?
No, to be quite honest, it's probably been the most successful Formula single-seater wise that's ever been introduced, and it was worldwide, as everybody knows. And to be honest, at the festival at the end of the year, drivers came from all over the world to compete, and there was probably in excess of 200 cars at the festival. So yeah, it's been around a while.
And one other thing that hasn't changed is the racing. The racing is really close. That's because the cars are designed to promote close racing, aren't they? It's not one of these slicks and wings single-seater categories. The drivers have to do all the work, and that's what makes it such a good stepping stone onto the higher levels of single-seater racing.
Well, I think the prime example is qualifying this morning. Look how close it is, you know, even between our own two drivers and the guy in third place. So that just really, for me, tells the full story. It's a fabulous class. It's ideal for the young driver coming out of karting, I think, for it to learn. There's so much learning to be done. And then once to do a season or 2 seasons in this, I think they're ready to go wherever they want to go, slicks and wings wise.
And we still get drivers travelling from across the world. We've got Americans back with us again this season as well. It still has global appeal.
Very much so, and you know, thanks to Jeremy Shaw from Team USA, to be quite honest, and we were very, very fortunate to get the Team USA program to run, and that attracted a lot of American drivers, and in particular the one that's leading the IndyCar Championship in Joseph Newgarden. But there's a few others there, Spencer Piggott and Connor Daly, and there's a couple of others in GTs as well. His program has attracted a lot of drivers, and to be fair to Jeremy, he's an Englishman who operates in the States, and he recommends a lot of drivers to come here to race in this class to learn, and then go back to the States and compete there if they need to.
We can see your cars being fettled in the background after what was a fairly successful qualifying session for you guys. Before we get into that though, just tell us a bit more about the cars for the uninitiated who maybe aren't that familiar with the formula. What is it that makes them so unique?
Well, obviously there's no wings on them, as you can see. It's a pretty basic car, but to be quite honest, suspension-wise is where the young guys can learn, because you can change so much stuff on them. They're not just purely on aero, but you can kind of hide a lot of mechanical grip. So the changes you can make for the driver to feel, and obviously the tyre isn't particularly sticky, so the car moves around a lot, so they learn a lot from that point of view. And then you add in the close racing, it's ideal, it really is ideal.
Lots of close racing, as you said, a close qualifying session as well, and you must have had a big smile on your face after that session because your 3 drivers are all in the top couple of rows.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had a really good qualifying, but, you know, unfortunately they don't dish out too many points for qualifying, so we've got to go into the races and see what we can do. But I'm delighted for young Jonathan Brown. He's made a big effort this year. He's been going to Porsche on their fitness program, and he's totally committed to this season, and now you see what the reward has been.
Have you had a little word with them about the plan into Old Hall Corner for the first lap?
Obviously, yes. Yeah. I mean, you have to, because obviously the one thing we don't want to do is ruin all the good work they've done in qualifying. So I think they'll be okay, because all season, and even at Snetterton, you've seen them race together, and I was never really worried, but you're always a little bit concerned just in case.
Cliff, thank you for talking to us, and best of luck for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So the first race then is not that far away. The cars are going to be heading out to the assembly area very shortly. We had 3 different winners last time at Snetterton. Are we going to see another new name at the top step of the podium today? Well, we're down on the grid now then, ahead of the first of the 2 races here at Oulton Park. We just spoke to Cliff Dempsey, and it's 2 of his drivers that share the front row. Jonathan Brown, you've got the pole position. Any nerves ahead of this race start?
I'd be lying if I said no, but I'm more anxious to get to the end. I believe in what I can do. Hopefully get through the first lap all right, and hopefully drive off into the distance, but judging how close it was in qualifying, I don't think that will happen.
It's not easy to overtake here though, is it? So I suppose if you get into Old Hall Corner first, there's a good chance of staying there.
Yeah, I've just got to keep my head and not panic, and just drive to the end, really. That's all I can do.
Cliff says he's had a word with you 2 about the plan into Old Hall Corner. What's your plan?
My plan is to be first going into it and first coming out of it, and then first to check a flag.
Easy enough. Right, well, congratulations on the pole position. Best of luck for the race. That's Jonathan Brown then on pole position for our first race today. Now, alongside him is James Clark, his Cliff Dempsey Racing teammate. So we're going to try and grab a word with him as well if we can. James is staying in his car. James, can we grab a quick chat with you if that's all right? So we've just spoken to Jonathan. He says he's going to be first into turn 1. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, we're both going to be trying to be first into turn 1, so yeah, we'll see. I think The smart move for us both is not to fight too hard, because obviously we're both quick. We both qualified first and second on merit, so I think generally whoever gets into turn one, we would try and probably push away and then sort it out later on. But yeah, I'll be giving it my best shot to get first into there as well.
It's so important, isn't it, though, because we just said this to Jonathan, that it's hard to overtake around here, so getting into turn one first is really essential, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that Cliff told we're under pretty strict instructions not to mess up each other's races, so that's probably more the essential part. But I mean, you can overtake here. It's more difficult than some places, but it's still, definitely possible, especially in Formula Ford.
Anything's possible in Formula Ford. Well done, James. Second on the grid then for James Clark. Let's see who else we can find then if we have another wander down the grid. Spike Kohlbecker is back at his car now, and he's lining up 4th position then, outside of row number 2. But Spike is our championship leader after the first 3 races at Snetterton. Spike, even good to see you here at Oulton Park. Championship leader, but you've got those pesky Cliff Dempsey cars there, haven't you? You're another one though. Can you make it 3 out of 3 on the podium?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, it'll be difficult because we have Ross in the mix, but it's totally possible. But I'll just try to make my way through the front and see as best as we can do.
Oulton Park's a little different to Snetterton, isn't it? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's a good track. We got 1 test day done here. Of course, we had yesterday, but yesterday was kind of on and off. But overall, I think it's a nice track. It's long, it's a fun track, and it's definitely challenging.
When we spoke at Snetterton, you said you were very much focusing on points. It's not all about race wind, it's about the championship. I suppose now you're starting a bit further back than you'd like. That becomes all the more important, doesn't it, to stay out of trouble? Yeah,
we didn't have the best qualifying luck, didn't have the best draft in our fast lap. We had to do an overtake in a place that we shouldn't have had a take and overtake. So we had just a little bit of problems in qualifying, but it all comes down to the race.
Well, best of luck, mate. Hope it all goes well.
Thank you.
So that's Spike Kohlbecker then, championship leader coming into this round. There's one more person I want to try and have a chat with though, and that's Brendan Lee, who's starting down on the 4th row of the grid, 7th on the grid. Had a lively time of it though last time out at Snetterton. It was his first ever circuit race. Brendan is an e-racer. He's been racing in online racing, and he knows I'm going to come and talk to him now. I'm going to have to duck underneath this umbrella. Oh, there we go. Brendan, welcome to Formula Ford Racing. Welcome to Oulton Park. Snetterton didn't entirely go to plan, but a clean slate, I suppose, this weekend.
Yeah, obviously we're aiming to do better than Snetterton this race. And we're just looking forward and using this as a learning opportunity, really. So just having a lot of fun and racing some real cars for a change.
Just tell us a little bit about where you've come from then, because it's an unorthodox route into motorsport, but it's one that more and more people are starting to explore.
Obviously, I came from sim racing, the simulation of the real world. And really, it's teaching me the basics of racing, and like trail braking, how to race a car, really. And I'm just applying that to real racing at the moment.
Well, best of luck for this one, mate.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it then, a few of the runners and riders ahead of our first of 2 races here at Oulton Park. Cliff Dempsey Racing looking strong after qualifying. Will they look strong after this first race?
That is the big question, Andy. The cars are on the grid here, ready for race 1, and here is how they line up. So as we said, Jonathan Brown and James Clark are on the front row together from Ross Martin and Spike Kohlbecker, then Neil McLennan and Rory Smith, followed by Brendan Lee and Michael McPherson. Jamie Sharp and Aaron Jeanson complete the top 10, followed by Morgan Quinn and Max Maserati. Then Scott Huntley, Nicole Woods and local favourite Nigel Dolan completes the 15-car entry here for this first race in Cheshire. So, an all Cliff Dempsey front row, but can either of them stand on the top step of the podium come the checkered flag? The first of 2 15-minute races are ready to go. Brown on the left, Clark on the right. Who's going to get the whole shot down towards turn 1? Lights out, and we are racing here at Oulton Park. Good clean start from the first 2. Down towards Old Hall for that first time. Into the right-hander goes James Clark, ahead of Jonathan Brown. We're on board James Clark, and he's straight on! James Clark is off into the barriers at turn 1 already! Well, that is extraordinary. He's deep into the tyre barrier. He looks to be okay. He's moving around. But James Clark's hopes of a victory have been dashed straight away, and he cannot believe it. And neither can we, to be honest. Now, whether that was a mistake or a mechanical problem remains to be seen. But the marshal's straight on attendance. There's the safety car. It's been deployed straight away, and no wonder. The safety crews will have to get to work to extract James's car from the tyre barrier. And the BMW safety car has already picked up the leaders, headed by Jonathan Brown. But that was an incredible sequence. Jonathan Brown looked as though he was going to lose out to James Clark. There is James. He's managed to get himself out of the car and he'll go off to the medical centre, but that was absolutely extraordinary. Now here's a replay. Nice clean start off the line. Just to the right there is his teammate, pole sitter Jonathan Brown. He pulls alongside, has his nose in front coming up towards Old Hall Corner. Now watch here, turns in and the car just goes straight on. Over the grass, straight into the tyre wall and straight out of the race. Now, what exactly the course was may remain a mystery, but that's a real shame to see him out at turn 1. Meanwhile, Spike Colbecker looking ahead as the leaders come across the line to get the race underway under green flag conditions at racing speeds for the first time, and it is Jonathan Brown that leads it from Ross Martin in second place. They turn in through Old Hall Corner for the first time. Here on board with Ross Martin in second place, staring at the gearbox of Jonathan Brown as they turn in towards Cascades at the bottom of the hill. We've got Spike Colbecker in third. There is Neil McLennan in fourth position, followed by Rory Smith. He's one of the local favourites here. He did well in last year's Northern Championship. You see Ross Martin darting one way then the other, trying to make a move here at Oulton Park. We did hear from James Clark before he retired when he said that it's not easy to pass at Oulton Park, but you can pass if you find the right areas. So we'll have to wait and see if Ross Martin can find a way through, or whether or not James Clark's Cliff Dempsey teammate Jonathan Brown can resist the pressure that the young Scotsman Ross Martin is applying right now. So they head out through the chicane at Britons, through the left and then the right, and then now over the crest at Hilltop as they charge up towards the complex for the second chicane at Hislops. And already you can see, look, to the inside line, Jonathan Brown is defending as Ross Martin tries to get the cutback on the exit through Hislops. It's one way, then the other, but already Jonathan Brown is making his race chassis the widest Formula Ford in the field. Out through the right-hander at Nickham. Right into the gearbox of the race to try and help him pull away from the cars behind if he can. As they head under the bridge and back towards Lodge again, he darts out, has a look. Meanwhile, behind them, look at Neil McLennan looking to the outside line to try and make the move on Spike Colbecker, but Spike has the line covered, and now it puts Rory Smith on the back of the Spectrum chassis in fourth place. Come across the line, pit boards ablaze on the pit wall as they head into turn 1 again. There is Neil McLennan in the white and blue Spectrum. Behind him there is Rory Smith, and just behind him there is double esports F1 champion Brendan Lee. It's his second weekend in Formula Ford. As we heard him talking to Andy earlier on, he had a difficult first weekend at Snetterton, but he did manage to finish 4th on the road on his first weekend in the first race at Snetterton before we got a penalty that put him back down to 10th for contact with another driver. But certainly showing his prowess here in his second weekend in the National Formula Ford Championship, and he's up there in 6th position. There's his teammate Neil McLennan applying the pressure to Spike Colbecker. As we continue on down towards the complex into the chicane at Britons. Just Martin hopping over the curb there, using all the road on the exit. So at the moment, Ross Martin finds himself in a Cliff Dempsey sandwich, but whether he can get himself out of that remains to be seen. He's looking to the inside line, but again, every single time so far in this race, on the approach towards the Hislop chicane, Jonathan Brown has had to go right to the inside of the circuit to prevent an attack from Ross Martin behind them. Through Hislops, he was a little deep into Hislops, but he's managed to come out the other side pretty much unscathed. And again, Martin's closing in. He's almost touching the gearbox again as they come into the right-hander at Druids. And again, so far so good for Jonathan Brown, keeping them at bay. This is very much a different Jonathan Brown that we've seen compared to last year. And now Ross Martin, he's done enough attacking. He's now under threat from Spike Colbecker behind. And also look behind them because we've still got Neil McLennan and Rory Smith stacking up behind them, waiting to attack. So we've now got the leading quintet. There's Brendan Lee and Jamie Sharp just in the background to make it a 7-car train for the podium places. A little wide from leader Jonathan Brown. We're back on board with Spike here, watching the wayward Van Diemen of Ross Martin. He swings the car left and right, and that's distraction technique. He's trying to put Jonathan Brown off by forcing him to look into his mirrors, to try and glance away from the road and to have a very simple lapse in concentration. And it can happen. It's an age-old technique in racing. But it looks as though Jonathan is wise to that. He knows exactly what Ross Martin's game is. Ross, of course, is in a bit of a catch-22 situation here because he's got to try and attack Jonathan Brown as much as possible, but behind them he's also got to try and defend from the likes of Spike Colbecker and Neil McLaren and Rory Smith and Brendan Lee. So he's got quite a task on his hands here, but he's rising to the occasion. Now back down towards Hislops, and this time it looked as though that Brown was a bit more comfortable on the outside line, and Martin thought about taking a move up the inside, and again Brown's a little deep in the first part of the Hislop chicane. That then puts Martin back onto his gearbox. We go back on board with Colbecker. And is this now the opportunity that Ross Martin's been waiting for here? Up under Clay Hill, under the bridge. Up towards Drews, he's moving out, trying to force himself alongside. Martin goes to the outside line, they almost touch. That's incredibly close between the pair of them. And Martin backs out of the move, but that could have almost been contact between the pair of them. That was a gutsy attempt there from Ross Martin, but he backed down to it in the last second because he knew if he didn't, it could have been race over for the pair of them. What this has done is it's brought Spike Colbecker back into play, but also look at Rory Smith. He's past Neil McLaren. He's now attacking Spike for third position. There he is, tucked underneath the number 5, the red and white car number 45 at the back of that first 4 cars as they go back into Old Hall Corner again. So Neil McLaren's dropped back. He's now into the clutches of his teammate Brendan Lee and also Jamie Sharp as we go back into Cascades once more. And now, once again, Ross Martin is in that Cliff Dempsey sandwich. Brown in front, Colbecker behind, and doing everything he can to try and get through. He is literally throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Jonathan Brown, but everything he throws at him, Jonathan Brown simply just absorbs and says, try something else. Ross, try again later. So, nice and clean, top 7 altogether. There's our fight for 5th position, and that's Rory Smith. Rory Smith is off the road. Some mechanical issues for the Medina chassis. Number 45 is out, and that's a shame to see that Rory Smith is out of the race. So it now becomes a 6-car train rather than 7. Up over Hilltop once again. We are in the closing stages here. It's only a 15-minute race, and Ross Martin knows it because, again, he forces Jonathan Brown to hug that inside line. But the run through Hislops is a little cleaner and tidier this time. And so it also brings Spike Colbecker into play, and also look at Neil McLaren. He's managed to close that gap in as well. So 4 for the lead then, under the bridge, over Clay Hill. And I think we're just about coming up towards the start of the last lap here at Oulton Park. This is the first of 2 races here at Oulton Park on the international circuit, supporting the TCR UK Championship and the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. Here comes Colbecker, looking to that inside line. Again, Martin has to go defensive this time. And he has to quickly switch from attack to defence and back again in order to maintain his position. Last lap here at Oulton Park, and Jonathan Brown is now one more tour of the international circuit away from his first national Formula Ford victory. But it's easier said than done because he's got 3 very hungry drivers lining up behind him to capitalise on the slightest mistake that he may make on this final tour around the circuit. Through Cascades, the battle of a third continues to rage on. Neil McLaren, like Ross Martin, is also a former Scottish Formula Ford champion. He's also made the road to Indy Shootout as well. Vastly experienced, and he has been a former Cliff Dempsey driver. Now we see a battle between 2 of the Team Dolan cars. The red and white and blue car is Max Maserati, and the grey and blue car there is Morgan Quinn, former Ginetta junior racer, turned single-seater driver. And now we go back with on board 3rd place Spike Colbecker into the Britain chicane for the last time. We're inside the last half lap here, and Ross Martin and co are running out of time and opportunities to try and steal the lead away from Jonathan Brown. Over Hilltop, down towards the Hislop chicane. This could be the first big chance he has on the second half of this lap. And again, into the complex, and once again, Jonathan Brown will not yield. Spike Colbecker is all over the gearbox of Ross Martin as we go back on board with the Scotsman, 2nd place. But he wants the victory, but time and chances are running out fast. Over Clay Hill, under the bridge, up towards Druid. He can't make a move here, he has to sit back. So his only chance now is to get a good run either up the inside at Lodge or off the final corner and on the drag race over Dearly to the line. Down towards the right-hander. Martin looks one way, then the other. Colbecker and McLaren look on, but I think it may not be enough. And so as they head out of Lodge Corner, over Dearly for the final time, it looks though it's going to be 4 winners from the first 4 races in 2019, because Jonathan Brown wins his first National Formula Ford race here at Oulton Park. It is Ross Martin in 2nd place. Spike Colbecker gets 3rd, followed by Neil McLaren in 4th place. 5th place will go to Michael McPherson. 6th place for Jamie Sharp, 7th place for Brendan Lee. It's Nigel Dolan and Max Maserati and Morgan Quinn rounding out the top 10, followed by Aaron Jeanson, Scott Huntley and Nicole Woods, with both Rory Smith and James Clark sadly retiring from that race. So there we have it, another new winner in the National Formula Ford ranks, and Andy has the top 3 on the podium from a very exhilarating race 1 here at Oulton Park.
Well, Jonathan, congratulations, first ever victory. What a place to do it, what a way to do it. That was a great race.
Yeah, it was very tough, I won't lie. Unfortunately, James, I think he crashed at turn 1. He had me into turn 1, locked up, and a bit unfortunate. But for me, it helped me out. And then it was all about defending until the end. I couldn't quite break the toe or get a gap, so it was never 100% comfortable, but I knew I just had to defend into however many corners, and life will be good.
You make it sound all so easy though. You can't afford to make a mistake, and yet it's so easy to make a mistake here.
Yeah, no, it was quite tricky out there. Again, just focusing on my break points, they were the key. If I went in too early, he could go around the outside. If I went in too late, to get the switchback, so I just had to get it perfect, which I luckily managed to do.
Not to get carried away or anything, I know this is only your first victory, but you know, after Snetterton could have gone better. Championship points looking a bit more favourable now, aren't they?
Yeah, it's nice to get that W under my belt, so I will hope for more consistency. We've been quick all weekend. Guys have done a great job with the car, so I'll just do the same again, hopefully.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, Ross Martin, it's another podium. The good news, that's 4 podiums from 4 races. The bad news, you still haven't got on that top step.
Yeah, you're right. I'm almost there, not quite, but you know, I felt like a quick race. Jonathan never made a mistake. Hard to pass right here, as we know, and when you've got 2 other cars behind you, it's even harder to defend and pass. But yeah, getting into race 2, you know, the car's home safe. We'll be starting P2. Try to get the thing off the line. You know, I could make the jump, but then again, it doesn't have to be done in the first corner. You can press them into mistake, but hats off to Jonathan. He never made a mistake, and for me, it's consistency. You know, the guys before me in the championship, you know, they finish races and points make prizes. So yeah, you're right. Another podium, but we're not quite there in the top step just yet. But hopefully, it will be soon.
It's early days in the championship yet though, isn't it? So these podiums are nice to have, aren't they? The win is worth a few more points as well as anything else, and a confidence boost as well then.
Of course, you know, I've not had a national win yet, so it would be nice to bring one home in Scotland tonight, but yeah, I will be going for it. But you've got to remember, you know, it's not the be-on the end-all taking a move for the lead if it's not on, so yeah, I will be definitely going for it in the last race, but I'll certainly want to bring it home.
And the trouble is, with 4 or 5 of you nose to tail for the lead, if you go for a move and it doesn't work, then you could end up losing out.
You're right, you know, that race there, if I made a little mistake, I could have came back to maybe 5th or 6th, so, you know, coming home with a podium in that race was good, but yeah, definitely trying the last one.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, cheers.
Well, Spike, you were the championship leader coming into this race. You've lost that championship lead, but it's another podium, and points mean prizes, don't they?
Yeah, it takes a long time to build up those points, but since it's at the beginning of the season, it's anyone's game, and any little mistake can really mess up your run throughout the whole season. But another thing is we have 4 drops, but I hope never to use those until the end for outside the podium finishes. It's still a long game. It's only a second weekend and first race today.
And your first race, I assume, here at Oulton Park as well. You said you were enjoying the circuit after qualifying. It's a tricky place to race at, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of chances to block. I really think of it as a one-line track, and if you're off that line, you're slower. And but when it becomes race time, a lot of people just take the inside of the track, and that's just racing. There's no way to. It's harder to get around them. But I mean, we still got one more race to see how we can do.
What are your thoughts for that second race then? We said the start was important in that one. The same goes for the next one too.
Yeah, just trying out a different first gear, and it seemed like it really worked off the line. In this race, we got ahead of Ross, so hopefully we can do the same in the next race.
All right, well, best of luck, mate.
Thank you.
The second race of the day for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship is about to get underway, with race 1 winner Jonathan Brown on pole position and Ross Martin alongside it. Jonathan got his first ever victory in race 1 and will be determined to do the double. Someone though who did not have such good fortunes in the first race was James Clark, who started on the front row of the grid. And unfortunately, James, things didn't quite go to plan in the first race, did they? Just talk us through what happened at the start.
I crashed. Yeah, just sort of, it happens in racing, doesn't it? It's not the ideal way to start the weekend, especially when you're P2 on the grid, but the team have done an absolutely incredible job. I saw it come off the truck and I thought, no way that's getting out again, and Cliff and Gavin Ray and Aidan and everyone at Cliff Dempsey Racing's worked so hard to just get the car back out, so huge thanks to them, and yeah, they've just done an incredible job. Best team on pit lane.
What are your prospects then for race 2? Obviously you're a long way back, but you can overtake in this category, so what's the realistic target?
I don't know, I mean, we can't go backwards, so we're just aiming to go as far forward as possible, wherever that, anything. The thing is, as you said, anything can happen, so we could end up anywhere.
I'm loving the optimism, mate. Best of luck for the second race then for James Clark, starting from the back of the grid. At the front of the grid, Jonathan Brown and Ross Martin about to do battle into turn number 1. Race 2 on its way. Let's hand over to Scott in the commentary box.
Thanks, Andy. Race 2 certainly is about to get underway. The cars making their way onto the grid here, and the lineup is set by the result of race 1. So, Jonathan Brown and Ross Martin are on the front row together from Spike Colbecker and Neil McLennan. Then Micah McPherson and Jamie Sharp on row 3 from Brendan Lee and Nigel Dolan, a much improved 8th. Then Max Maserati and Morgan Quinn make it 2 Team Dolan cars on row 5. Aaron Jeanson and Scott Huntley are on row 6 from Nicole Woods and Rory Smith. And then watch for James Clark, as he and Smith will be wanting to make their way up through the field as quickly as possible from the back of the grid after retiring in race 1. So, onboard cameras as usual with this man, Ross Martin, with pole sitter Jonathan Brown. There he is. We've also got cameras with the other 2 Cliff Dempsey cars, Spike Colbecker, the young American. From the back of the grid, James Clark. He'll be looking to make his way through. The red lights are on. Hold them for a very long time, but eventually they will go out, which they do. And we're racing here at Oulton Park for race 2. Good start for Jonathan Brown. Martin immediately moves to the inside line and forces Colbecker up against the wall to defend second place on the run down towards turn 1. It's Brown who turns in first into Oulton corner. Martin in second place, then Spike Colbecker in third. The sun beating down here as it's later in the afternoon here at Oulton Park in Cheshire. And into fourth place after a cracking start from row 3 appears to be Micah McPherson. He's got the jump on his teammate, and also Jamie Sharp, who's up to 5th position. Down Lakeside for the first time, and already Martin is again physically pushing the race chassis, trying to edge him out of the way as they head into Island Corner. Through the left-hander they go. Jonathan Brown's a bit wayward. He's sideways on the exit to the left-hander, and through goes Ross Martin into the lead. So the young Scotsman does the one thing he couldn't do in race 1 and moves his way past into P1 here in the start of this second race of the National Formula Fords at Oulton Park. A great move from Ross Martin. He forced him into a mistake, and now he hits the front. So, into Britain's for the first time. It is then Martin from Brown, from Colbecker, and there, as we said, is Michael McPherson in car number 16. Jamie Sharp in 5th position, McLennan is 6th, and Nigel Dolan's up there in 7th place. He's made a move on Max Maserati as the leaders pile their way into his stops for the first time. We're back on board with Colbecker. This time, he's steering at the gearbox of his teammates rather than Ross Martin, which he did in race 1. They head up the hill into Druids for the first time. The shadows lengthening here as the sun beats down at the start of this second race out of Druids under the bridge down towards Lodge Corner for the first time, and here comes Jonathan Brown looking to try and retake the lead on the outside line into the right-hander. Martin squeezes him out, and that's going to cause Spike Colbecker to get all the opportunity he needs to move up into second place. They almost came to blows as they did in race 1, and now here comes Colbecker to the outside line of leader Ross Martin. Martin puts the car in the middle of the road into the right-hander, and he remains in the lead, and Colbecker gets held up through the apex. So an extraordinary sequence. Sees a change for second and third after an attack from Jonathan Brown didn't work out. Ross Martin covered the line, and now we've got Brown into third place. Neil McLennan is up to 4th. He's got past both Micah McPherson and Jamie Sharp, 2 cars in 1 move. Now we go back on board with Jonathan Brown, the young Irishman. Now it's the Cliff Dempsey cars switched around position-wise, so it's now Brown staring at the back of Colbecker, who in turn is chasing after Ross Martin. He takes up the mantle for Cliff Dempsey Racing. Into Shellors, a very wide entry into the corner for Martin. Colbecker just trying to stay with him here as they turn through the flat-out right-hander in towards the first of the 2 chicanes at Britain's, down a gear. And Neil McLennan's having a strong second lap. Look at that, he's right on the gearbox of Jonathan Brown again. There's McPherson. Then we've got Jamie Sharp, followed by Nigel Dolan. And there already is Jonathan Brown, is James Clark, sorry. from the back of the grid up to about 8th or 9th position, so he really is charging in these early stages. He's wasting no time whatsoever to work his way up through the field. Now on board with James Clark, there he is. Now the next car he's got to try and get through is Jamie Sharp. Now that's the car just in front of us. Ahead of him is Michael McPherson, so he's up to 7th place already in the first 2 laps. It's a very impressive run so far for James, and possibly showing what could have been pace-wise in race 1 had he not had the accident. He was a bit lost for words in what happened. We saw Andy had a chat with him in the holding area for race 1. At the front of the field, Ross Martin having a jump holding on to the lead, never mind the assembly area, into the right-hander up the inside. For 3rd place goes Neil McLaren, wide on the exit goes Jonathan Brown. He's down to 4th position. If he's not careful, he may come under attack from both Michael McPherson and Jamie Sharp, and immediately he goes to the inside line to defend the position. So he's not only just lost the lead, he's lost 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the space of 2 laps. Out of Oulton corner, he's lost a few car lengths to the cars in front. And he's got a small gap now to the mix. Oh, and that behind, that's James Clark. Now, what's happened there? Because Jamie Sharp's gone through, Micah McPherson's dropped back, and so has James Clark. So I think they've come to blows at some point at Oulton corner. Meanwhile, Spike Colbeck is still giving chase on the back of Ross Martin through the left-hander at Island Bend, back into Shell Oils. It's tidy apex on the inside line for Martin. Colbeck follows suit. Up another gear. Now back towards Britain's again. And Spike Colbeck, as we've mentioned a few times already, is really taking to the UK circuits. And Oulton Park is one of the most tricky and demanding out there. The way it flows, the way it sort of rises and falls, the undulations and twists and turns. There's no wonder it's likened to the Nürburgring. Into Hislops they go once again. So this time it's now Dolan from Cliff Dempsey and then from Kevin Mills. 3 different chassis, 3 different teams, 3 different drivers of 2 Scots and an American. I was about to say 3 nationalities, but that wouldn't have been right. So Colbecker again just nibbling away at the gearbox of Martin as they turn in through the right-hander at Druids. Again, just hit that 2nd apex. A little wide over the curve for Martin. That might give Colbecker the invitation he needs. McLaren watches on in 3rd place. And down into Lodge corner. Nice tidy line between the 3 of them. McLaren is starting to attack now. He knows he can start to wind it up through Dearleap and up towards Oulton corner. Colbeck is in the slipstream. Now which way will he go? Inside or outside? He looks to the inside, but he's not far enough along in the mix. And Martin hesitated on the apex of the corner there, and that almost gave Colbecker a chance to get through, but he had to back off and check up on the inside. And now McLaren's right back into the mix, as is Jonathan Brown. He's recovered after his little mishap after being shuffled out of the way at Lodge corner by Neil McLaren. We're on board with the Irishman. There's the gearbox of Neil McLaren. So Scotland from America, from Scotland from Ireland. That's the top 4. Now we turn again up towards the Shell Oils hairpin. It's a very tricky corner. It's a banked 180-degree hairpin. You sort of fire your way out the other side. Jonathan Brown, as we've said in race 1, really is showing a lot of improved pace here this season. He came into last year as a rookie and was able to learn very quickly under the guidance and tutorship of Cliff Dempsey Racing and his team. He's done a lot of work, a lot of testing over the winter, and that showed with his first victory, but he's been up there right from the first weekend at Snetterton. And so has Spike Colbecker, for that matter. Of course, Ross Martin and Neil McLaren have both done this dance many times before. They know the Formula Ford inside out. They are giving it everything in these early stages here. Spike Colbecker looks to try and become the first double race winner. Ross Martin is yet to win a race. McLaren also has won a race this season so far. He won race 3 at Snetterton. So could we see 5 from 5, or are we going to get our first repeat winner? Well, Colbecker wants to make it him as he looks to the outside into Lodge corner, but still no way through. So Ross Martin is pretty much doing the same thing Jonathan Brown did, putting his car right into the middle of the road and forcing the other drivers around him to try and find a way through, just to try and find that chink in the armour to expose the weakness and make an attack up the inside or outside wherever there's a gap to squeeze past. So Jonathan Brown, race 1 winner, as looking up the inside with Spike Colbecker. McLaren was taking the racing line to get the cut back on the exit through Cascades, and now they go back down past Lakeside. This is Colbecker's view, still staring at the back of the 1999 Van Diemen chassis, getting closer through Island Bend. An attack of the shell oils will be very deadly, but would also be very risky. And Spike feels that discretion is the better part of valour, just holds firm for the time being. Jonathan Brown back in fourth. So the two Cliff Dempsey cars are sandwiching a Kevin Mills car this time. Neil McLennan is boxed in third place. Little bit of a slide from Martin on the exit of Britain Chicane over the crest at Hilltop. And again, this is now Kohlbecker's chance. And Martin, just as Brown did, he's tucking to the inside line. And again through Hislops. No change in the top four, but Kohlbecker is really applying the pressure. He's giving Martin the big hurry up through the right-hander at Knickerbrook, and now up Clay Hill. He'll start to edge closer in the slipstream. The power of the 1600cc Kent engine, he's getting closer, but again, Martin's car is planted right on the racing line, and there is no way through. So, can any one of these four break the deadlock? Now, just behind them, not too far away, that looks to be Jamie Sharp, and sixth place is now, by the looks of things, slight distance away, possibly James Clark. As Jonathan Brown goes for third place now on the inside line, Neil McLennan. McLennan squeezes him up against the pit wall to try and force him to capitulate, which he does. And Brown has to sit back, but that was a very hard attack. Meanwhile, at the front, there was a bit of a... Jonathan Brown now lining up a move for third place. There he looks to the outside line, looks outside and inside, tries to dome McLennan, who looks to go up the inside line of Kohlbecker, and they contact. Kohlbecker does a complete 360. McLennan goes around and possibly has damage, but he carries on. And the benefactor of all of that is Jamie Sharp by the looks of things, but he lets him through. Has he got a problem as well? Jamie Sharp, I think, has got a completely unrelated problem. He's letting them through, and I think that's benefited James Clark out of all of them, I think. I know James Clark is sideways as well, so he holds on to the place. So now in the lead is Ross Martin. In second place looks to be Jonathan Brown, and I think in third place is James Clark. So from the back of the grid, James Clark is in a podium position. There he is. Well, what an incredible sequence that was. Running wide on the exit, that I think looks to be Spike Kohlbecker in the third of the Cliff Dempsey cars. They'll come past the pit, and I'm sure Kevin Mills will be thinking, hold on a minute, where's Neil McLennan got to? But he may have heard on the circuit tunnel that there was a bit of contact, and I think that looked to me as if it was Neil McLennan just defending the inside line from Jonathan Brown, went too deep into the corner, and there is Neil McLennan. Just behind him there is the 16 of Michael McPherson, so he's recovering after his spin. But looks like McLennan just tried to defend from Brown on the inside on the run into the Hislop chicane. Just missed his braking point, tagged the rear of Kohlbecker, and around he went. Oh, and that's Jamie Sharp out of the race. We saw him with his hand out of the cockpit, and unfortunately, mechanical issues means he will not see the end of this race. Well, Ross Martin out on his own in the lead. We're on board with him now. And after all the shenanigans behind him, he now has a bit of breathing space to work with here. And all he has to do is keep it on the road, maintain the gap to second place behind, and he will be on course for his first win, and he will be the fifth different winner from 5 races. There's James Clark, a bit of a lock-up into Hislop, so he's still pushing. He's in third place, but his teammate Jonathan Brown is ahead, and that could be an incentive for him to push to try and get himself a place higher on the podium. And that would certainly be part redemption for his first lap retirement in race 1. James has put in a sterling effort. He's pretty much kept mostly out of trouble. There was a bit of a skirmish between himself and Micah McPherson by the looks of things. Jamie Sharp looked to be involved in that as well. But it is Cliff Dempsey car's second, third and fourth, because there is Spike Kohlbecker, who's recovered in fourth position. Fifth place now is Neil McLennan after that contact. Just behind him there appears to be, might even be Brendan Lee actually. So Micah McPherson possibly has dropped back. It looks to be the 72 that's in there behind Neil McLennan. So that will be Brendan getting a good masterclass of how to race a Formula Ford by Monsieur McLennan. This is James Clark's view. So the car directly in front. That's his teammate Jonathan Brown in second. There's Spike Kohlbecker in fourth. And there are the two Kevin Mills cars, and it is indeed the 72 of Brendan Lee. So he's tailing the back of his teammate. There he is, double esports champion. Currently races in the F1 Esports Championship for Mercedes. He's taking his first steps into single-seater racing. Did the opening rounds at Snetterton. He's also competed at Castle Combe as well. in the Castle Coombe Formula 4 Championships. He's certainly getting to grips with circuit racing pretty quickly. He really has been impressing Kevin Mills Racing since he stepped into that Formula 4. Now then, this is the battle for second place because James Clark, getting very sideways over the curbs, is getting closer and closer to the back of teammate Jonathan Brown here in second place. So Jonathan Brown would love to get a first and a second to come away with at Oulton Park, but James Clark wants a bit of redemption. Meanwhile, that's Brendan Lee shaping up his teammate for fifth position. The two Kevin Mills cars are line astern, and Brendan Lee may be about to go on the attack here. Now, whether or not Neil McLeod's carrying any damage from the contact between himself and Jonathan Brown and Spike Colbecker, it doesn't look as though there's too much. Brendan Lee's doing a great job to keep with him. We turn out of Druids up towards Lodge Corner. There is our leader Martin, continuing to spread eagle the field. Here's our fight for second. So Cliff Dempsey, I think he's just saying, you're free to race, just don't do anything silly and just bring the cars home. Otherwise, if they start to fight too much, you'll be having heart palpitations. Down the pit straight, over Deer Leap, it's still Brown in second. Then it's Clark in third, Colbecker fourth. No change between the two Kevin Mills guys as they sweep past the pit boards. Still McLaren from Brendan Lee. And now down towards Cascades once again. So Ross Martin is a few seconds up the road now, comfortably in the lead, but we know that if these two continue to fight, the Egypt's going to be for Martin to continue making a break. Head down towards Island Bend, back on board with Clark. This is his view, looking forwards at the back of Jonathan Brown's car, carrying plenty of momentum through the left-hander into Shell Oils. How much can he close up here? Hugs the inside apex. Foot down on the exit, up towards the first chicane at Britain's. And can he possibly start to line him up for an attack towards Hislops? He won't pass here. Over the curbs. A strong exit through the chicane at Britain's and over Hilltop could set him up for a move. He's got a good run over the crest at Hilltop. And where's he going to go? Will he look to the inside? He thinks about it, thinks about a move, but just thinks discretion in the end is the better part of valor, and just sits back for the time being and decides a move down the inside would have been a little bit foolish and could have ended both of their races. So he's just holding back for the time being, but he's just letting Jonathan know he's there in second place. He's not letting him relax just yet. He's still got some time to go here. Under the canopy of the trees into Druids once again. We are in the closing stages of this second race here of the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship for 2019 at Oulton Park. As Ross Martin continues to lead, the main battle is here between the two Cliff Dempsey drivers, Jonathan Brown of Ireland versus James Clark of England. And now as they come across Deer Leap onto the pit straight, the last lap board goes out, so Ross Martin is only one more tour away from taking victory. But which order will the Cliff Dempsey cars cross the line? Will it be Clark ahead of Brown or Brown ahead of Clark as it is now? Let's go back on board with Clark. Down towards Cascades they go for the final time. A good run through the left-hander here could set him up for a great charge down Lakeside, but I think Jonathan Brown has got the measure of him down the back straight towards Island Bend on this last attempt. He is pulling away by a couple of car lengths. And I wonder maybe if James Clark has possibly just settled for third place, thinking, well, there's no point attacking too much on this last lap. Just sit back and let's bank the points for second and third and go to the next rounds and see what we can do. So out of Shellos, yeah, he's backing off. He's just allowing Jonathan Brown to take a comfortable second place. He'll sit back and try and form a bit of a formation finish with his teammate Spike Colbecker. There they go. There goes Clark, there goes Colbecker, very sideways on the exit. He's still pushing even though he's in fourth place. But I think the three Cliff Dempsey cars are resided to their order. But Jonathan Brown, he'll carry on pushing towards the end, but it looks to me as if second place is his, locked and loaded. But it's never over until the checkered flag. As we go back on board with Jonathan. Just that white speck in the distance, that is Ross Martin, who has led this race ever since the first lap. When he took the lead through Island Corner, and from there he has held on. He had a lot of pressure in the first half of the race, but then the incident up at Hislops allowed everything to be a little bit more relaxed. And now Ross Martin will head down towards the complex. Well, he probably would have felt he should have got a victory at Snetterton, and now we can put that right here in Cheshire as he exits out of Lodge over Deer Leap for the final time. He'll be able to celebrate in delight as we get from the first two rounds of National Formula 4 5 different winners from the first 5 races. Ross Martin wins from Jonathan Brown in second place, followed by a third place for James Clark, fourth place for Spike Colbecker, 5th for Neil McLennan, and 6th for Brendan Lee. A fantastic day's racing. And there is the final result in front of you as well. So Ross Martin taking the victory, Brown in 2nd place, and then followed by 3rd place finish for James Clark from the back of the grid, with Spike Colbecker 4th, and the rest of the field coming through on your screen. A brilliant day's racing at Oulton Park, and there's more where that came from next time out. Join us then for more National Formula Ford action.
Well, Ross Martin, finally it's happened. You've got that first victory. That's got to feel good.
Yeah, awesome day. Another consistent day, and obviously that makes good steady for the championship. But I'm so over the moon. You know, I've came back and done the national after 2016, and you know it's nice to get that first win, and it does mean a lot. You know, it was a tough race. These guys were on me from the start, but you know when moments like that happen, you know a little instant behind you, you just got to get your head down. And I think my last 3 laps were very consistent, and yeah, bringing it home made it more comfortable. But again, you've still got to make sure the car gets over the line. But yeah, I'm so over the moon. You know, everyone at Team Doan's done a great job since I first started with them, and you know, a big hats off to my family. You know, I really appreciate their help, support, and you know, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't go racing. And especially coming here and doing the national this year, I'm really happy.
You were under immense pressure there for the first 2/3 of the race, really, and then there was a bit of a sort out behind you by the looks of it. Was it just a case of keeping an eye on your mirrors and making no mistakes?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is hard to pass around here, and it's easy to defend, but it's easy to make a mistake also. And you know, getting by Jonathan was probably the most important part of my race. You know, it was a good move, but Jonathan did make a little mistake, and it just shows you it does hurt. But you know, once I got into that lead position, you know, you got to remember the mirrors of what you're going to be using for, because I didn't have the pace to pull away, unfortunately. But yeah, it came home in one piece, and I'm really happy. Thank you.
Well, congratulations on the victory there. Now you've got that monkey off your back. More to come?
Yeah, we'll be giving it a go, obviously, but yeah, consistency is key. But yeah, it's nice to get that first win. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Well done, mate.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, James, when we spoke about 20 minutes or so ago in the assembly area and you were starting at the back of the grid, did you actually think a podium was doable?
No. I thought the others would be too quick. I was helped by them sort of having their own little incidents. But yeah, I thought they'd be too quick to catch. But the first lap went brilliantly, and we were sort of already on the back of them. And from there, it was just a normal race from then. And again, sorry to sort of bang onto the camera about it, but that is 100% down to Cliff Dempsey Racing, because let's say again, the car was a total mess, and they just, you know, it was like brand new. It was fantastic, and I think we got fastest lap as well, which just proves just how good a job they did in such a limited amount of time.
All things considered, a good save really, isn't it? Because with the drop scores, you can sort of forget about that first race now, and this is a great way to bounce back.
Yeah. It's sort of, you know, I don't want to make too much of a theme of sort of problems in the early races and then fighting back through, but it all goes to show the pace of the package that we've got, and hopefully if we can iron out those incidents and problems and start sort of, you know, I guess keeping the strong results on a roll rather than fight backs, then I think we'll still be looking good.
If there was an award for most overtakes, I think you'd be up there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we need to do that because BTCC have that, so we need to have like an Avon Tyres sort of version of that.
That wouldn't be the only trophy you'd get, I'm sure. Congratulations on the podium, brilliant drive.
Thank you.
So the action comes to a close here at Oulton Park after the second round of the National Formula Ford 1600 Championship. 2 cracking races and 2 new winners as well, with Jonathan Brown and Ross Martin both making their first appearance on the top step of the podium. They'll be keen to do that again next time out at Anglesey, but they're sure to face some stiff opposition. Join us then to find out what happens next.